Well, hi, everyone. It's 9:01, so I think we can go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to say good morning and welcome to the University of Illinois System's 2023 Town Hall on State Priorities. I am Jennifer Creasy, Assistant Vice President for External and State Relations for the U of I system. And I am delighted to be the host for today's conversation with U of I System President Tim Killeen. As the Illinois General Assembly is in their last month of legislative session, we've got a lot to talk about. We will begin with a presentation from President Killeen, recapping our university highlights from the past 12 months and discussing our priorities for this year. That will be followed by a question and answer period. Many of you submitted questions when you registered, and we will answer as many of those as we can get to. Feel free to put any other questions you may have in the chat or in the Q&A function. If we don't get to them, we will try to follow up later. We also have with us today our new Executive Vice President, Nick Jones. He will also be available to answer any questions you may have. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce the 20th President of the University of Illinois System. Dr. Timothy L. Killeen took office in May 2015 and has led to a surge of growth for the state's flagship university system. From enrollment to capital investments to fundraising. He brings with him more 3 decades of experience as a teacher, a researcher in geophysics and space sciences, and as a leader in both public higher education and scientific research agencies. President Killeen, thank you for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I hope you can all hear me well, and good morning, and thanks for participating today in this now annual event on our state priorities. I'm really glad that you're able to join us and give you a summary of things that are happening at the University of Illinois system, and it's all good. Just to let you know that everything that seems to be going in the right direction, but we want to focus as well on our state legislative priorities in the coming months, because you've been so helpful in advocacy, and that's really paying off. You're all part of an alumni family that we have that's now 827,000 strong. And each one of you is a living reminder of the power of an education from one of our 3 universities to create opportunities and transform lives right here in Illinois, but around the world as well. This meeting has become an annual tradition. And since we last gathered in February 2022, we've reached yet another record historic high in enrollment. We've also seen a number of other firsts and advances around our system. Design approved for the Discovery Partners permanent headquarters in Chicago, progress at a number of our other Illinois Innovation Network hubs across the state, new construction taking place at each of our universities that will ensure that our facilities match and support the educational excellence that we promise for our students. Philanthropic achievements, public confidence growing, trust in what we bring to bear for the state and beyond, and our research enterprise is stronger and more vibrant than ever as well. So you'll hear a little bit more about all of these things shortly, but I'd really like to start by expressing my sincere appreciation and gratitude to our Governor, J.B. Pritzker, for making education visibly and firmly, and higher education in particular, a priority in his budget proposal again this year. And for the signal, this historic signal this sends about the critical role that our public universities play, and particularly, of course, the University of Illinois system play in propelling our state forward towards a prosperous future. The budget request we have submitted represents a 11.7% increase over the current fiscal year funding. While that is above the governor's currently proposed increase, we're very supportive of the governor's plans to move forward. Our proposal is a well-considered calculation of the investment needed to sustain our operation, continue our role as one of the state's greatest resources. The University of Illinois system has an annual economic impact on the state of $19 billion a year. And that doesn't go up and down with the stock market, that's solid. And it provides an 11.1% return on every state dollar invested. So a taxpayer dollar returns 11% back to the tax base annually. It's a profit center for the state, is what we like to say. And these are not our numbers. These are from an external expert consultant group. We have great interest in the success of Illinois now, obviously, and into the future. And that means helping the state reach key goals and meet the major challenges of our time, including preparing a diverse and talented workforce for the future in things like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, clean energy, sustainability, food production, healthcare, education, and social work across the board. The University of Illinois system continues to prove its value there as one of the key drivers of economic opportunity and prosperity, helping bring to life the vision of a thriving Illinois that we all seek. 1 in every 46 jobs comes directly out of our work at the University of Illinois system, 1 in every 46 jobs in the state. Our commitment to the public begins and ends with our students and the world-class education we offer them, all at a scale that allows us to make significant strides in the effort to keep more Illinois students at home. I'm very proud of our progress in that regard. Today, the University of Illinois system in enrollment accounts for 52% of all students attending public universities in the state. And that number has grown from 49 or so over the last year or two. Our enrollment hit a world record of more than 94,800 students this academic year. And it has marched higher over the past decade at an unmatched scale, increasing by 22% over that decade. We've added roughly the equivalent of a mid-sized public university over that time. So on the supply side or the demand side, families are voting with their feet. Just as importantly, our students are increasingly a reflection of who we are as Illinoisans. More than 2/3 of our students are from the state, and 4 out of every 5 of our undergraduates comes from the state of Illinois, which is a very high number compared with other similar peer institutions. We are therefore a reflection of our state, geographically as well. We have students from 101 out of our 102 counties, and if one of you wants to ask which is one that's missing, it's Alexander County, but we're working on that in the deep south of the state. We're proud to report that 32% of our students are now from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups, also a world record. That's almost 25,000 students in all, an increase of more than 60% over the past 10 years. Furthermore, what we call Access 2030, which is our new initiative created to further increase the number of graduates from underrepresented groups by 50% by the end of this decade. That Access 2030 will accelerate and build on this proven commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion for all in our state. But our commitment does not stop when the students enroll. We need them to succeed, to graduate and get great jobs and participate in civil society. And so we continue working to ensure students have the support they need, wraparound services, and a welcoming and inclusive environment in which they can thrive and learn. There are 4 key state priorities in this year's budget request that I wanted to share with you, and they reflect our central commitment to students. We believe that they will pay significant dividends by increasing our financial aid, by hiring more faculty to take care of these more students that we have, including faculty of color, by growing our bridge programs, which I'll mention a little bit later on, how important they are, and enhancing critical mental health services for our community that I think is really important right now and as we move into the future. So first, to maintain affordability and minimize the financial burden on students, the U of I system has continued to partner with the state and federal government to minimize the financial burden on students. And over the past 10 years, we've provided every year greater levels of financial aid from the institution itself, reaching today a record $277 million this year. And that's funding that comes from the University of Illinois system. This, along with the additional $100 million in monetary award program, or MAP, which is a state program proposed by the governor. The $100 million is an augmentation proposed by Governor Pritzker, will go a long way in increasing affordability for our students and their families. So we're happy to be taking on the affordability issue in the state. And we're grateful to the governor for his proposal and proud to be a partner, full-blown partner in this quest for affordability. Almost 23,000 of our students rely on funding from the state in the MAP program, which is the state's primary financial aid program. That's a lot of students who are benefiting directly from state support in the state budget. I'll tell you just about one of them. Jayshawn Tariq Smith from Chicago was recognized during the governor's budget address this year, and he is currently a junior at University of Illinois Springfield, majoring in psychology with a minor in child advocacy studies. And we were so proud of him to be recognized personally at the governor's budget address. But without the MAP grant that he receives, Jayshawn would not have been able to pursue a career as a clinical psychologist for children, a path he chose with his community's need for mental health services in mind. Just one example of the many, many students that benefit directly from state support from our system. Secondly, the system has grown tremendously, and serving more students means that we must scale our faculty to meet demand. We have more students than ever, and we now need to grow our faculty so that we get a beneficial student faculty ratios into the future. And so we're seeking an increase in our appropriation, in our budget request, that would allow us to devote $10 million new appropriation to a 5-year program to recruit more talented faculty to meet the demands of our growing enrollment. And I have to say that right now, University of Illinois is a place to come. We're seeing a lot of interest from around the country and around the world, frankly, in joining our faculty ranks. So it's my belief that if this appropriation is accepted, we'll be able to really recruit incredible talent, which will set the stage for the next decades at the University of Illinois on education, on research, and on public service. Next, we're also committed in our budget request to use $7.5 million from these funds to bolster our already strong bridge programs at our 3 universities. Now, we call them bridge programs. What are they? They reduce barriers for enrollment and success for many students. These are mentoring programs, support programs for students to really help them transition into the 4-year university segment effectively, providing them the resources and the confidence, frankly, to make that transition well. And it's particularly important for first generation and non-traditional students to get this kind of boot camp opening of doors to our program. So bridge programs are important for us, and they're about as close to a magic bullet as you get. They're known to improve outcomes, and it's not guesswork. We've got quantitative data illustrating that bridge programs are successful. For example, the Latin American recruitment and educational services at UIC increased the number of first-generation students by 79% in the years 2017 to 2021. And it's also playing a really important role in retention and graduation rates. So bridge programs support our students as they succeed and move forward. And we're very proud of our records in retention, graduation, and student success. Finally, in our budget request, we promise our students strong mental health services when they get to our campuses, something for which we've seen demand significantly, I would say massively increase, partially due, of course, to COVID and what that brought to bear on high schoolers and so forth. Especially in the last few years, we're seeing the tip of an iceberg of issues with mental health. And so with an increased appropriation, another $7.5 million will go directly again towards students to expand our ability to offer much needed help and provide the counseling resources needed for rapid access to professional help, assessment, but also community building on our work to create a culture of well-being across the system. So all of these budget requests that we've made to the General Assembly are important efforts to ensure that our students succeed, that they have a strong sense of belonging and can prosper and progress towards graduation. And as I said, we have a strong track record in this area. 88% of our first-time freshmen return for their second year, and we have a 77% graduation rate. These are numbers well above the national average. The national average graduation rate is 64%, for example. So when our students come, they succeed. And those that may go to other universities too. So the success is remarkable at the U of I. And we graduate and provide 24,000 degrees are awarded every year. Well, going into commencement season, it's a really wonderful time of the year. I personally enjoy it tremendously to see these transitions and amazing, talented students, so proud to get their degrees. 24,000 of them, like a small town coming off our product line, not so small town every year. And a growing number of these system graduates, now 75%, that's 3/4, stay in Illinois to become citizens, taxpayers, and participants in the state's economy. So we are directly supporting the workforce in our state. That's 3 out of 4 stay in the state. There's a lot of concern about leakage to out of the state of Illinois. We're doing our part to keep talent here. We're also preparing our students to be engaged civically. Located in our capital, the University of Illinois Springfield, for example, provides opportunities for students to learn directly about the legislative process and prepare for a career as a public servant. We have hundreds of internships in the state capital from that program. It's also imperative on the other side of the coin that the state's K-12 students be ready to move on to higher education in our state. Investing in K-12 initiatives is critical for our human capital development and long-term economic growth. And this is indeed a major priority for our state. These efforts will collectively have a tremendous impact on our workforce pipeline, but we must continue to create new pathways for lifelong learning. The Discovery Partners Institute in Chicago, for example, is working to create new pathways to tech careers, which are needed into the future, and build a pipeline of students ready to take on those jobs that are going to be opening up in years ahead, that are key to the kind of forward-looking economy that the city and the state really need. If we're going to be a prosperous state, we need to take advantage of the technology capacities and capabilities with human capital. So DPI is working in a partnership with P33, which is the non-for-profit created to transform Chicago into a hub for tech companies, to spearhead tech talent development programs that prepare more than 300 students already annually for the jobs of tomorrow. In partnership, another example with Wilbur Wright College, and with support from Apple and the CME Group Foundation, DPI has just recently announced the first ever program for middle school students that aims to expand access to computer science education. So we're working across the whole pipeline of talent from K through lifelong learning. Complementing these efforts, the DPI's Pritzker Tech Talent Labs offer paid apprenticeship programs in partnership with global professional services leader Cognizant to create new pathways to tech careers. It's not enough just to do the training. There needs to be the connection to industry. And all of this is just the start of what we want to do. We want to be able to scale programs like this to amplify our reach, to create jobs for our graduates, startups, opportunities, partnerships, and impact the state and really ready the workforce of the future. Through your support, and it's so valued, your support, we expect to break ground on the new DPI headquarters on the Chicago River next May to continue and expand this important work. I don't call it the groundbreaking, I call it the bulldozer day. But DPI, of course, is just one of the 15 hubs of the University of Illinois System's Illinois Innovation Network. Up and down the state of Illinois, there's a hub at each of the state's public universities. And this network of innovation, regionally tailored economic development that we have created, led by my colleague, Jay Walsh, Vice President for Economic Development and Innovation, is really cooking now, where each of these hubs is regionally tailored to the local needs but all interconnected through advanced cyber infrastructure. And this network is a source of envy outside of our state. We're turning heads in Missouri, Iowa, Wyoming, all across the country. And there's some states that are attempting to replicate what we've been building here as a sort of next generation, modern innovation ecosystem that's truly inclusive. So IIN, as we call it, is at work across the state, developing new economic opportunities, providing jobs for our graduates, helping recruit our high schoolers to come to our doors, and addressing the needs of those communities around the hubs. Very strong support from the state for IIN. One example of what we're doing, funded by the state, is in regard to broadband. Broadband access is crucial to the ability to live and work equitably in the modern world. And in the broadband desert still found over much of Illinois, educational and economic opportunities can seem to be out of reach. So we have 2 new IIN projects working across its hubs to close the gaps in broadband access, providing both access and training programs to familiarize users with the range of possibilities that broadband makes possible. The Connect Illinois Broadband and Digital Equity Planning Initiative, as we call it, will make this possible by allowing the state to receive historic federal digital equity and broadband equity access and deployment program funds in 2024 and 2025. So our work is helping us access even more federal funds to support our broad statewide community. The U of I system seeks to be and wants to be and is increasingly seen as the real catalyst for innovation and positive change through partnerships with industry that bring together the best of both worlds, public and private, in our state. And we want you all to feel like intimate partners in this adventure. This is how you build the tax base of a modern, prosperous state. System-wide, our research portfolio is also doing well. It's well over $1 billion. I heard $1.3 billion recently. And this is funding that we bring into the state. It's financing discovery at all 3 universities, the job-creating, life-changing kind of innovation we talk about so much. We account for 2 of the 4 so-called Research One universities in the state. And UIC, I'm proud to say, has grown to be a research powerhouse with now over $460 million in sponsored research, supporting over 3,200 projects. And UIUC in Urbana-Champaign, of course, is a major internationally recognized powerhouse in discovery. And yet, once again, it's the #1 university in accessing National Science Foundation research grant funding. Since I spent some years at the NSF, I know how competitive that is, and I'm really proud that UIUC has that leadership role. Our research excellence and our partnership with the state of Illinois, I think, has reached new levels, and it will address the critical challenges of our time by creating and nurturing this inclusive innovation ecosystem driven by our students. Together, another example, we drove SHIELD Illinois, which was the U of I system unit that we created to share our fast, accurate COVID-19 test and its digital accoutrements, created on the Urbana-Champaign campus across the whole state. 2,000 schools, the state judiciary, the state legislature, factories like Rivian, Toyota, et cetera. And as we evolved, as the pandemic evolved, working with the Illinois Department of Public Health is now providing wastewater surveillance for early warning, the first line of defense in pandemic state of readiness and preparedness. There's no recent better example of our research and innovation conducted in real time for the public good. I often get asked, why didn't other universities create something like SHIELD Illinois and deploy it to the community and saving lives? And I don't really have a good answer to that, but we did, and we did it through generous, multidisciplinary collaboration, selfless collaboration, faculty, our staff, working hard in a crisis mode during particularly the early days of the pandemic to do this. If we can do that in a crisis, imagine what else we can do as we move into the future. We have to forge strategic partnerships, public, private, academic, and entrepreneurial, to increase our opportunity for impact. Another example of that partnership thinking is that the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and the University of Illinois Extension, along with the Jackie Joyner Kershey Foundation and the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center, are doing just that at new levels of energy and commitment in East St. Louis. The JJK FAN Center provides quality youth and community programs inspired by Olympian Jackie Joyner Kersey's life experience growing up in that community. She's giving back. We want to partner with her. This project sets the foundation for community development and youth engagement through growing food, agricultural innovation that can lead to jobs, improving the health of the participants, and along with it, their ability to seize opportunities and build prosperous lives. As we know, health and well-being play critical roles in economic vitality. And a big part of what we do is UI Health and the Carle, Illinois Medical School in Urbana-Champaign. Our role there is going to be very important because health is a deciding factor in whether people are able to seek out opportunities and act on them when they arise. And there's work to be done here at the state level, and we're engaged. Around the state, the U of I system is helping Illinois reach critical goals through increasing access to quality, affordable care and bridging gaps in health equity with over 50 community clinics. UI Health is a proud partner, for example, in the new Auburn Gresham Healthy Lifestyle Hub in Chicago, a needy community that we're helping directly. And this project has transformed a long vacant building into a center for wellness in an underserved community, not just scanning and screening for preventative healthcare reasons, but helping with legal advice and so forth, and even helping write business plans for social startup opportunities. So we're addressing the social and structural determinants of health that drive inequality in patient outcomes and providing targeted care for communities that experience disproportionately high rates of disease and health risk factors, very much manifested during COVID. This is part of our responsibility too. We're taking it on. And in collaboration with the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services, UI Health is bringing specialty care to Chicago's Southwest side, including behavioral health, women's health, and urgent care services. So across the board, we work to improve patient outcomes and transform the landscape of healthcare. We're talking about, for example, how could Illinois become the healthiest state in the nation? How could we perhaps increase life expectancy by a couple of years? What would it take to do that? Building on our success with our COVID work, and building on our success in solid organ and cell transplants, large-scale initiatives like our partnership with the Illinois Department of Public Health to close the racial disparity in life expectancy. We know that in Chicago, the neighborhood you live in can determine how long you live, and we can no longer accept a 30-year disparity in life expectancy among residents of the same city. We're working to bridge that gap too. So everything we do for Illinois in partnership with the state is to try to open doors, to provide opportunities for Illinoisans, all Illinoisans, that will lead to a better future. Obviously, our critical component is our student. With a greater number of students, we now have a larger impact on the state. We need to recruit students. We need to convince them early on that research-intensive public higher education might be for them, and it will lead to a better future, not just for them, but for their families. And we're going to celebrate this, of course, at our commencements that are coming up. There are a few ways state leaders could choose to invest public funds that would have a greater, wider reaching research return than investing in the University of Illinois system. So we seek and rely on your support and advocacy to advocate for reinvesting in higher education after some decades of disinvestment in this new era that we're entering, led by Governor Pritzker. So I just want to personally thank you all for your continued loyalty to, your interest in, and your advocacy for the University of Illinois system. And now Nick and I would be happy to try to answer questions that you might have. back to you, Jennifer.
All right. Well, thank you, President Killeen. As you just mentioned, we have received a number of questions, so let's jump right in. In some cases, we have received a few questions on related topics. So for efficiency, we combine them and try to package them together.
Okay.
And like I said, if we don't get to your question, we'll try to follow up by email. But first of all, I was wondering if you could talk about if you think the state of Illinois is going to increase funding for the U of I system.
Well, the first thing to say is I'm the incurable optimist. Yes, so my answer is yes. I think we're in a historic period where a trend of disinvestment is bottomed out and it's going up now because there's a recognition of the importance of investing in our youth. Governor Pritzker, as I stressed, is showing significant leadership, amazing leadership. I was at historical level of leadership. I attended the budget address, and his first priority was education. His second priority was education. His third priority is education. And of course, that's what my life has been about. So I'm just so thrilled to see that. We will, I believe, see a strong support in the coming budget. There's a general recognition of the significance of this. All of our, 450,000 voters in Illinois who came right out of our degree programs have a voice in the future of the state, and that's recognized and important. I believe that we have bipartisan support in the General Assembly, and thanks to you, Jennifer, and your team, we've spent a lot of time there in and out of offices, visiting them in their home offices as well, and we're very present in the state's General Assembly thinking, and I look to as a source of information, knowledge, etc. So that alignment all the way through the governor's office, through the General Assembly, and of course, when we advocate for something, it's for all of public higher education, not just only for ourselves. I think that alignment is very, very strong. And frankly, I don't see it in other states. So let's take advantage of it. I think we're looking at some good years now of solid growth. And on our side, we have to be transparent in how we use public funds. We have to be effective in how we use public funds. We need to demonstrate the outcomes explicitly and quantitatively about that. We need to make sure that everything is done with full integrity, et cetera. So I'm hugely optimistic, and I believe Nick is too, but maybe you could add a sentence, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and thanks for the opportunity to be part of this this webinar. I think Tim captured it very well, and one of the important words he used was alignment. And in fact, this was one of the things that I really noticed when I was being considered for this position, and made me excited about it, was the degree of alignment that exists with the U of I system at the center of it throughout and across the state really is extraordinary. And a big motivation for me joining the team was because of the prospect of what we can accomplish together over the next decade. So I'm very excited to be here and agree with everything that Tim said a moment ago.
Well, thank you both. So how do you balance both the financial health and the organization's mission of serving Illinois students first? How do you kind of put those together?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for whoever came up with that question, because it is balance. That is the right word. There are a lot of competing priorities and issues in a university as complex as ours. We have 3 departments of police, we have hotels, we have dining rooms, we've got buildings to manage, we've got students, we've got to address tuition and philanthropy and research funding. So there's a lot that needs to be balanced. I would say I believe we're in really good shape with that balance. Again, the optimist in me is coming forward, but we need to continuously monitor and adjust the balance to make sure we don't go out of balance. For example, our impetus to hire more faculty now is because we got more students. And the pressure is still growing. We had a 30% increase in the application pressure, was the last number I saw for this coming year. So there's more to do, and we'd like to operate at large scale. So the scale of our we don't want to be known for how many people don't get in. We want to be known for how many people succeed and move forward. So the system is financially healthy. We just had an increase in our bond rating that we're very proud of. We went up to AA1, and I've had to learn what that means, but it's strong. So there's good fiscal strength in our system. The improvements in the state funding perspective is really important. The whole health of the hospital system and the clinic system is vibrant. It's working well. And as I said, 4 out of every 5 of our undergraduate students is from Illinois. So we try to serve the state in lots of ways. I think increasingly in comprehensive ways as well. So it's not just the degree, it's the, as I was stressing in my remarks, K through lifelong learning. We train teachers. We have 3 colleges of education. We train the principals in the high schools. We were supporting the schools to stay open through COVID with our saliva test. We're working on even apprenticeship programs and upskilling and reskilling and finding jobs. We're partnering with industries, notably in the state. We're keenly trying to keep our human capital in the state. Now, roughly half of college-ready high schoolers leave the state, and a lot of them don't come back. So that's a population we're going for. We want to convince them, no, the grass is not greener elsewhere. This is the place to be for the kinds of opportunities that we can bring to the table. So all of this, it requires balancing. As Nick will attest, we talk about this balance all the time. It has to be reflected in our budget discussions. And the balance has to be projected honestly, transparently to our stakeholder external community. And we do that through our websites, and you can find out where the funding flows are. We do it through our messaging, our reports. We do it in many, many ways. But we're a major asset for the state of Illinois. And some of the things I didn't mention, like we run the state surveys, we run the Office of Medicaid Innovation. There are many things that we do, as well as the state hospital, that are directly supporting this state of Illinois. And we're not going anywhere. The word Illinois is in our name, but we can do it at even greater, more impactful levels. And I think that's what you're maybe hoping, I'm hoping you're appreciating, that we're building an economy, we're building a human capital base that is directed to the future challenges, technical, but arts and humanities is going to be very important for us too. So we want to do that with fiscal responsibility. We have, we also have a lot of interface with the labor movement. We have over 50 bargaining units at our system. So that's another set of stakeholders. And we want to make sure that our staff, our students, our graduate students, our faculty, all feel like they're supported by our institution. And that's another major component of the balance that we seek. But we will take input from people who feel that from any reason or direction that we're out of balance, come let us know, and we'll talk. I think maintaining that balance for a learning organization that's world-class excellence throughout, operating at a large scale in a state like this, in this region of the country, I think we've got an unparalleled opportunity to get this balance right for decades to come. And it's all going to be about people. We've got to have great people. We've got to be able to recruit great people, retain them. We've got to have an educational mission that's just unbelievably good. We've got to keep track of things. And, so databases, we've got to work on the challenges of our time as well and actually solve them, not just fret about them. And so all of that is needed. And we need to exercise leadership as well. And leadership sometimes involves not being so risk averse that you don't take on things that might need a little bit of more energy and commitment than has ever been shown anywhere else. And just to mention something I'm excited about, I hope you all are too, we were just selected at the U of I system to be the host of the International Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress in 2025. So this is a number of issues that, you know, we're going to have to grapple with into the future. We can lead internationally on that. And there'll be many tens of countries represented at that Congress in 2025 in Illinois. We've led that effort. And so we're going to raise the banner high.
Yeah, along those same lines, we have a question from one of our friends that was formerly in the General Assembly. So thank you for this. What are the 4 university leaders doing to obtain federal research dollars in bringing that money to Illinois?
That's a great question. Thank you for being here. We just had a panel meeting that I participated in with those 4 leaders. We're in close contact. We are directly collaborating, I think, energetically to go after some of the major opportunities in the federal landscape right now. We just collaborated to win the Chan Zuckerberg big over $200 million award, and we were the winner of 60, you know, such institutions. So we need to really be tight. And it can't be a not invented here kind of tension in the state of Illinois. So those 4 institutions are really important. And we're working closely together. We need to work even more closely together, I would say. And with the leadership of J.B. Pritzker, there's a committee that's been formed, which I'm proud to say that Chancellor Robert Jones will be the co-chair of. It's having its first organizational meeting very soon. That's going to be basically targeting that kind of degree of intensive collaboration to be optimally prepared for and go after these opportunities. And we're talking about hydrogen hubs, we're talking about quantum computing, where we've been very successful. We're talking about chips and the Science Act. And so we're working closely together, I think, at higher levels of collaboration. And if you compare Illinois' asset bank, I don't know if you're a senator or a congressperson, but thank you for your question. If you compare Illinois' asset bank and add in the DOE labs and the computing backbone and all of the partnerships we have around the world and the country, we have a tremendous competitive edge that we ought to take advantage of. And we will do our part of the U of I system to be team members when appropriate, to be team leaders when appropriate with those other 3 institutions. I think in my time, there's a heightened level of collaboration. And, you know, some success actually breeds more success. So we won some things as well, which is really great.
So to follow that up, another question from a guest on the line, what attention is being given to the liberal arts as well?
Yeah, thank you too for that question. We have a presidential initiative to celebrate the role of the arts and humanities and the liberal arts generally in all of everything I'm talking about. And it has to be central. It cannot be peripheral. It cannot be an add-on. It cannot be the last chapter in a strategic vision that focuses only on the STEM and the healthcare professionals and engineering and the like. And it's our special sauce as well, because if you think about a future that is going to be prosperous, it's got to be a future where we all thrive. And the human experiment, the human experience, has to be part and parcel of everything we do. Ethics is important. History is important. The arts, the humanities, social sciences is incredibly important. And these big university systems in the United States, I would say, I've voted with my feet, obviously, they have all of these fields, all of these disciplines right here with generous interactions across them. So the liberal arts and the needs to be continually a central component of what it means to get a world-class education. We want our students to be able to be exposed to lots of ideas, some of which they may vehemently disagree with, but they ingest, they see the diversity of thought. We want them to be able to read well and to understand and to be seekers of the truth, and to be able to discern between things that don't make sense and things that do make sense. And so the liberal arts is core to our role as a comprehensive, research-intensive, I'd say that land grant concept as well, which we're trying to modernize and project into the future. But I'd like to invite Nick as well to speak to this, because I know he shares that passion.
Sure. Just a couple of quick things to add, Tim. First, I would say no truly great university is a great university without a commitment to and continued investment in the liberal arts. It's vitally important. And I think when I think of a system like ours with the great institutions that we have part of it, we have obviously a large footprint in the STEM disciplines. But a question that comes up, I mean, it's active in media discussions today as we contemplate the future of artificial intelligence, for example. And it's a very important question, I think, that grounds us all. And that is, just because we can, does it mean we should? And the does it mean we should piece of this is often much broader and more complex for us to contemplate. And I think without a liberal arts context for thinking through that question, we are limited in our ability to be effective. So from my perspective personally, it is vital that we maintain robust investment in the liberal arts across all of our institutions.
Thank you. What else can we do as a university to increase women and minority freshmen and also the interest of community college students to transfer to the U of I system?
Another great question, and we ponder this all the time. For women freshmen, we're in pretty good shape in terms of the balance there. For minority freshmen, there's still some work to do. I mentioned the progress we've made. Our enrollment in underrepresented minorities is on the rise, but too slowly, I would say. We've increased from about 15,600 students in 2013 to almost 25,000 last fall. That's an increase of 60% over the past decade. We're not at the balance representing the demographics of our state and our region sufficiently yet. So that's why we've developed this Access 2030 initiative, which is directly designed to increase the participation rates of underrepresented groups. And now, we also need to worry about women in higher levels, in department chairs and in, senior administration levels as well. We're doing pretty well on that, but all of these factors need to be taken into account. Now, you also mentioned in the same question community college students, which is really interesting. So we're doing more on the representation front, and we need to accelerate our progress there, which means that we need to get out and about more regularly. So one of the things I've initiated is an annual state tour where we, with you, Jennifer, and others, we get on, we get in our vehicles, and we do about 1,500 miles up and down the state. We go to towns, we visit people, we go to extension offices, we go to universities, industry as well, and high schools and district superintendents and so forth. We need to do more of that kind of systemic, large-scale outreach in order to increase women and minority participation in what we bring to the table. Are we doing enough? No, I'd be the first to say we're doing a lot, but it's not enough. We need to be much more energized, I believe, and that's why the Jackie Joyner-Kersee relationship is so significant for me, because we're going to be there, East St. Louis, we're going to be visiting. We're also, as you know, working with 5 district superintendents with the leadership of Speaker Welsh to follow up on being present and being available. If you don't give young people think of middle school people, exposure to what could be. They can't make it up in their minds. They need to see role models. They need to have opportunities. They need to experience the fun of intellectual activity, learning. They need to be able to participate in groups and be parts of teams. So we need to provide that kind of exposure so that, and then the financial part of this is massive. When we, really strip away everything and ask, well, why is this number so low? It's usually financial concerns and considerations that limit the participation rate. That's why everything I said about our state alignment is so important and so exciting for the state of Illinois, because it's now we have a time to really address the financial constraints that limit participation. So getting back though to community college students, I'm excited about this too. Illinois is ranked #1 in the success of transfer students, going from community colleges to four-year settings and then succeeding. We manage the transferology, it's called, software that enables students to see how to move around in post-secondary educational settings. We have many relationships and we're growing them. City colleges, we're going to Harper, we're working with the 46 community colleges and looking at seamless transfer of credits so that students don't get stuck because they've got the wrong sets of courses to seamlessly. Our transfer students, which are students who come to us after being in community colleges, they succeed at higher rates than others. So they're very well prepared students. We love the relationship with the community college system, and we're providing those transfer pathways. We're considering doing that even more systemically. So it's not just relationships with individual community colleges, but more broadly. I did mention the Wilbur Wright relationship that we have. There are many relationships like that with community colleges. I believe that you have to take almost like a systems engineering view of human passages through these different transitions all the way back. And almost you need to personalize it as well. We need to roll the red carpet out for youngsters. So wherever they are, so that they can imagine a future and their families can imagine a future that is enriched through participation in post-secondary education. And then they come back and they upskill and they reskill and they feel loyalty to our overall enterprise. Helps us philanthropically as well. So we've got a pecuniary interest in this long term as well, of doing this really well. We're not where we need to be. We're making progress, but we need to accelerate that progress. And that's what's so exciting about the where the state is now. And I hope you see that reflected in our own priorities and it's not just to build the numbers, but it's actually to have all of these folks succeed, graduate, get jobs, have less debt, manageable debt, if there's any debt, to stay in Illinois, to have great, opportunities, to be able to buy houses and raise families and so forth. All of that is part of our responsibility as a land-grant university system. We take it very seriously. I hope that answers a little bit the question, but I can give you one last number on community colleges. We have 4,000 students a year transferring from community colleges to our universities, and they do really well.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have a lot of questions that are coming in, a lot of great questions, and I know we could be here all day, but I think we have time for one more. And I think it's an important one to end on how we know that the health and mental health are important to both our staff and students. How do you think we can improve our physical and mental health in the coming year? And I know we did talk about that as part of our budget request, but what do we have in mind on how we can help out the student mental health?
I really think that's a profound question and challenge for our times, because I don't think we see on a day-to-day basis the scope scale of the problem sets associated with mental health, particularly for young people, but I'd say also for staff and faculty. So what we've been doing is we've been intensifying our efforts on like the obvious things, perhaps call them obvious, but they're important, more counselors, rapid turnaround so that people who may have problems can get help quickly and effectively. We also had 2 annual symposia, where we brought in experts in this field, listened to them carefully. It set up task forces. And one of the things that has really struck me as really important is it was a phrase by one of our outside speakers that don't just refer, but also relate. Referring being, you refer to somebody who may have some difficulties to a professional. So we've got to do that. We've got to make sure that works, but relate to listening to each other, checking in on each other, on dorm floors, how's it going? I think the community of peoples in our different communities, it's on us to be mutually supportive as well of one another. And we often talk about this. The students resonated with this kind of thinking, backpacks that may have a thing that say, ask me, can I help, kind of things. I think coming together as a community is really important right now. And frankly, there is a lot of negativity in the airwaves. We all know this. There's a lot of almost too much outrage, right? Outrage seems to be a currency, right? If one group feels that the other group is disagreeable, then it becomes just too emotionally charged. And our young people need to feel that they can express their views, that they can disagree vehemently with others, that there's a whole kind of community sense and feeling that they belong. So, and that they belong kind of authentically, and they're looking out for one another as well. So it's building that culture of looking out for one another is really important. So that's what when I shorten that to don't just relate, don't just refer, but relate. It's the relating is important. And I think we've got to all do that. So when I go out in the quad, I like to say, I interrupt a student with iPhones listening in, ask them what they're listening to. What happens is they look at me with irritation. What are you interrupting me? I'm going somewhere and I'm listening to something, and I ask them what they're listening to. Typically they'll tell me, and I say, I've never heard of them, because music changes so fast and podcasts all over the place, but you get a wonderful smile. So people need to be uplifted. I think it's possible. When I go to a class, I'll often ask, is it possible on this campus today to feel isolated and alienated? Hands go up. We've got to work on that. So it's a human to human kind of challenge as well as a technology or a tracking or a challenge. So I know I'm talking the abstract, but I hope whoever asked the question, please give us your thoughts on how to do that in the next year. I noticed that in the next year. That was a good like sense of urgency there as well. We do, and we must have a sense of urgency for this. Students who've been sort of unable to interact in community because of COVID we have to be very tolerant of their of where they are in life, and we need to provide the antidote to some of the things that have constrained their aspirations and their sense of belonging and community at the U of I. We can do this unbelievably well, and we're going to do it.
Well, thank you. Like I said, there were a lot of questions submitted, and unfortunately we are out of time. Just to follow up from President Killeen, I think we are up to the challenges that we faced. And I know there was a number of other things mentioned, and we will work to get back to everyone who's asked a question before this webinar and during. And we really want to thank you for joining us today. I think it's so important that we stay in touch. Specifically, if you are not a member of our Illinois Connection program, we will send you the link. We would love for you to sign up to be an advocate for the University of Illinois. And it's through that program where we regularly send emails and connect with legislators and our alumni, students, faculty, and staff. And it's a very great community and a great resource for us all of not only information, but also advocating for the U of I system. So thank you in advance for that. We'll also be following up with all the links that we talked about today. I know we gave a lot of information, and we will follow up. But we look forward to another very busy and productive year. And again, we thank you, all of you, for your support. So have a great Friday and a great weekend. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.